Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL Correspondent Week, episode 14. And the Seagull is here. Let me introduce you to our Brighton and Hove Albion correspondent. It's Sam Murray. How are you, Sam?
I'm very good, James. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me back on the podcast. Always great to be on a part of Correspondent Week. This must be 7 or 8 years now as a correspondent. Always
Oh,
a pleasure.
when was the first correspondent week?
It
The
was the
first
first year we came
correspondent
up,
week
I
was
think.
maybe
But then,
2019,
yeah,
maybe as the first correspondent week. It's just become a staple now. You always say hello to the listeners and the viewers every year. They thank you for that, Sam. They can't tell you, but they are thankful that you're thinking of them. We must start with the management situation. When we last spoke was just before you played Manchester City around the double game week. And I dropped to you that things didn't feel right with De Zerbi. Like your results were worse than I think what the perception was on the outside, because people like me kept eulogizing about De Zerbi and his football and stuff. But there were things you could begin to feel that there was a little bit of friction, and we covered it. Yet when the news dropped that you'd separated, and it felt like a divorce actually, it was a shock.
yes, yeah. I was gutted, to be honest. It's been rumbling on, like you said, and I feel like it got to that stage of the season where maybe they were in discussions of what the plan was for next season. Where do we go from here? And it felt like it was either going to be a wake up one day and he signed a new 3 year contract saying how much he loves Brighton, or it was going to be a he's gone and he's doing his own thing. Yeah, a real shame. I think Bloom and De Zerbi were just a bit too far apart, and they're both quite stubborn. Bloom has his vision, a vision that has worked very well, and he sticks to it. So when De Zerbi wants a bit more control with transfers, when he hadn't had the great success with his players that he bought in that season, it's a tough one. And what would have happened if we gave him a bit more control? He brings more players in and goes the season after anyway. It's a tough one, but yeah, it's a gamble from Bloom. One of his biggest gambles, getting rid of not giving everything to the manager who is our most successful, most loved manager ever, and bringing in an inexperienced manager. But that's the Brighton way. It's a risk. We'll see what happens.
Whose decision ultimately you think it was? Tony Blaine's?
Yeah, I think it would have been. Yeah, it probably would have been Bloom. There's a few articles and tweets every few weeks of like they're chatting again about signing new contracts. It did look like at one point he was going to sign a new contract, and then the longer it went on, the more you thought, yeah, this isn't great. And the performance on the pitch sort of matched that. It dropped off a little bit. Yeah, and we said goodbye to him on the final day, which is very sad. But it feels like a long time ago that now. So it's nice to have a fresh start and see what we can do with Hürzeler.
Did that help that there was you know?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and it wasn't. It was, like I said, it was a shock, but it was coming. And then yeah, the final game we got to he got to go and do his speech, and the whole stadium stayed behind. And I think the fans begged him to stay, but it's
Bit late.
he made his decision. Yeah, and ended up at Marseille, which does it feels like he could have gone to Marseille is a big club, but in a league with PSG and the players there, I feel like everyone kind of expects them to maybe a step up from that. But we'll see what he does. I'm gonna keep a close eye on Marseille. I'm gonna be very interested to see how he gets on.
I mean, they're spending money. It is a
Yeah.
massive, massive football club, but I think you're right. It's in League One, and
Mm.
it feels like a one-team league at the moment. So, okay, there's a prospect of a good season, and maybe you got Champions League football next year. But I don't think it's quite what we envisaged for him. You must have thought for a few days afterwards, he's going to Chelsea, and he must have thought it.
I thought it was happening. Yeah, I thought Chelsea was the obvious straight in at Chelsea. Yeah, got linked with a few teams, and I just didn't want it to be Chelsea. So I suppose that's a positive.
I'm interested to know at the point that you knew De Zerbi was leaving. I think most of us, when a manager leaves, it's like, okay, I want him or this, that, and the other. Do you sit back and relax because you think, well, Brighton are just going to come up with a process of something here that I haven't thought of, so I'm just chilled.
Yeah, I do. I trust the club. there was a bit of panic after, because I mean the odds come out and you go through the names on that list, and you see Graham Potter at the top of it. You see other managers that weren't quite on De Zerbi's level. So there's a bit of panic, but you knew it would be someone out of nowhere that they'd had on their predetermined list that would be the new manager. So yeah, it was a bit of a panic, because you can't really get as good. It felt like you can't really get as good as De Zerbi. We'll see what happens. Yeah, but Bloom's always got a plan.
I mean, you're a fresh face and look like you're not that long out of school, if you don't mind me saying, mate. And your new manager's not much. Your new manager's not much older, mate.
No, he's not. No. Yeah, fascinating appointment. 31. I'm sure we'll hear his age mentioned plenty of times this season.
Have you locked in the pronunciation yet?
What is it? Is it Hürzeler?
I could say, is it Hürzeler? Fabian Hürzeler. I think there's like
Hürzeler.
a T in there that doesn't exist.
More of a T, yeah. I see.
Yeah, Fabian Hürzeler, I believe.
Yeah, 31. So, I mean, it's very strange to have a manager like quite a few years younger than some of the most experienced players, and I'm sure it does have an effect, especially if things start to go wrong. But yeah, it's no problem. He's got his own ideas. He's got his own system. I'm interested.
Yeah, obviously got St. Pauli to promotion from the second division in Germany last year. Career cut short by injury. It feels on trend with you to do this. Let's be honest, 95% of them would not have heard of this gentleman a couple of months ago. What's the early thought on what we're gonna say system wise? Because De Zerbi was rock and roll at its best, mate, and fluid beyond belief. What's this? Are we going to get the same brilliant watch Brighton, but also sometimes a car crash? What's this going to be?
Yeah, something like that. He definitely has his similarities with De Zerbi, and yeah, I didn't know too much about him, so I've watched a few tactics video, and we had the QPR game at the weekend to really get to grips with what's going on. I think it's a 3-4-3 system, which is his preferred system, with that middle centre back being the ball carrier, and then the centre midfield is really pushing up into attack. In pre-season, we've seen a few systems. It's been more of like a 4-2-4, the most common in pre-season, with one of the midfielders joining the attack, and the fullbacks quite narrow, similar to his principles at St. Pauli. But trying to label it with a formation is going to be tough. There's going to be games this season where you can take multiple screenshots throughout the same game, and you're going to see different shapes, different build-up, and it's going to be fluid, and especially those forward players got a lot of freedom. So it's going to be interesting.
What we've got with so many teams now is players who play multiple positions. They play one position with the ball and one without it. Obviously, attacking players have got a lot more freedom. In the structure that I've looked at, you will get the majority of the team is playing the individuals are playing a different position with the ball to without the ball. It's going to be quite unique. So what I'd looked at was what you'd said. Yeah, 3-4-3, central centre back going and moving into midfield. Centre backs moving into wide areas, full backs really pushing on, central midfielders pushing into really advanced zones. One may be sitting, depending on the quality of the central centre back and how he is receiving off the other centre backs. Because remember, he's moving into a midfield position. Centre forward dropping in short, wingers off the flank into central areas. Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, and in pre-season, obviously, it's quite difficult in terms of personnel, to really get an idea. There's players playing all sorts of positions, but I think at a basic level, the most noticeable thing was how direct we were. Not all hoofing long balls up to a big man. It's quick attacks. We get the ball and we're looking to fizz it into the strike, into the centre mid, to look for the wingers wherever, which is exciting. I think one of our goals in pre-season was a long kick from Steele, a couple of nice passes, and 2 seconds later, Minteh's one-on-one with
To be fair, we'd seen that from De Zerbi as well, right?
Yeah,
the perfect example of that I remember was a goal Simon Adingra scored in pre-season last year in America. I'm pretty sure that was from goalkeeper, and he'd come off the left flank and ended up in the centre forward position because the back line had pushed up. So under De Zerbi, Lewis Dunk certainly would go over the top and stuff.
Yeah, it happened a few times with Mitoma as well, running behind. We had that a couple of times, but yeah, I like his his directness in attack. And I think looking at his stats from last year, it was defensively as well was very strong, which you don't want to complete the chaotic all-out attack manager if you're going to get found out very quickly in the Premier League. So those defensive stats are quite nice as well.
Do you expect a defensive improvement?
Yeah, I think towards the end of last season we were really poor at the back. There's a few. We had a lot of injuries. We had obviously our heads had dropped a little bit after that Roma game, but some of the goals we were conceding, it felt like we'd been found out a little bit. I hope for a defensive improvement. I think that'd be a good place to start if we start the season off and we're conceding goals and we look dodgy. Then get the defense right and then let Mitoma, Minteh, they're individually brilliant. Let them do their thing.
Oh, if you get it right defensively, you've got enough quality. I think the danger always for you under De Zerbi was some teams can win games against anyone at any time. You could lose a game against any team at any time, as much as you and I both liked him. What I'd looked at defensively it's interesting. I found in my research that I did about a month ago, before you'd had any of your friends, was that one of the people that he really admired, deep breath, was Oliver Glasner, who's obviously at rivals, not Seagulls, but Eagles. And they can funnel into a 5-4-1 off the ball. It's what Glasner likes to do. And Palace too, now very progressive team in terms of how they want to play, but will press high. If they don't win it high, drop in. And I think you're going to get similarities with that, where you might be a bit more difficult to break down actually this year. You might at times sit in, you go, oh, Brighton look like 5-4-1 here. You might look like that at times, in particularly if you play against like a City or an Arsenal, are clearly going to have spells where they dominate. You'll try and win high, but if you don't, expect it to drop in. That's what I think I've found. But it sounds like from what you've seen so far, there might even be some variations on some of the things you've seen system-wise, which doesn't surprise me when actually the squad's a bit bloated at the moment, Sam. Almost an after effect of two things. One, building a squad to play European football, and two, half of it being injured for that European campaign now means you've got a lot of footballers actually, and I presume, just to generalise here, I presume there's a number of players are going to leave the club here.
Yeah, exactly that. We do have quite a big squad, but then in terms of actual quality, we still need more players. So players are going to have to leave.
What I mean is you might buy two quality and let 9 or 10 go. Even if it's loans and stuff.
Yeah, you scroll through our midfielders list and there's loads of them, but then you actually try and pick out 3 or 4 proven midfielders at this level. It's quite difficult. So I think one more of them, and then you're looking at Moda, Dahoud, players like that leaving permanently. A few loans as well for the younger ones. I think there'll be a lot of people leaving towards
this
the end of the window.
This is episode 14 of Correspondent Week. I've got a list of players in front of me, and this is the first time I can't see all the players on the list. There was a stat which I know our friend FPL Chancellor had at one stage, that the amount of midfielders that you had listed in the game was the same number as the total number of West Ham players. So there's clearly going to be some players move on. Before we talk new season, I just wanted to touch on Pascal Gross, who I guess leaves the club as a bit of a club legend and quite a fantasy legend for a few people at certain stages. Actually, he's been probably an underappreciated at the same point fantasy asset, because he's been extremely consistent for a number of years. Thoughts on his departure to Dortmund?
Yeah, that's one player we didn't want to leave. We didn't want to get rid of. Sad to lose Gross. It's a transfer that's been on the cards for a while. It was sort of rumoured at this time last season, and we got another year out of him, which is brilliant. He'll be a massive loss. His leadership, experience, consistency, his versatility, and it's just his pure ability. Club legend, no doubt. Signed him when we first got promoted and scored our first Premier League goal. He's led us to Europe. Yeah, he's our most important player of this era, and it's sad to lose. But his boyhood club Dortmund come in. You can't really stand this way. Sad to see him go. Probably the best 2.7 million, whatever it was, we'll ever spend. Without him, we probably wouldn't be where we are. So sad to see him go.
Fair to say that in the middle of his period review, he had a massive dip, and a few fans would have preferred him to move on.
It was that sort of Graham Potter bit where he didn't really have a position. He was we'll be playing him up front, right wing back, centre mid, and he almost felt for a few months that we started to outgrow him, which was strange. And he almost felt like he was going to be the one that would, we would move on. But yeah, you can't keep him on the bench for too long. And once he realised how important he was almost a deeper midfielder back then. He played so many different positions.
Played
There was
everywhere
a
for
little,
you, bar centre back, basically, mate.
there was a bit in the middle where we thought we'd outgrown him, but no chance. He just got better every season. He got better.
Brilliant player for you, mate. So now with De Zerbi gone, Hurzeler in, that taste of European football, and you acquitted yourselves very well, mate. What's the expectations now? Because this time last year, people like me were saying, I think if they didn't have European football this year, they'd really push for top four. That conversation is non-existent now. It feels a long way away. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's the unknown, isn't it? A little bit. We've got a new manager. We've got a lot of players that we've quietly spent a lot of money, but not a lot of players that people will be familiar with yet. Cautiously optimistic, and I am really excited. It's nice to have a fresh start. Like we said, it kind of fizzled out towards the end of last season. We lost our spark a little bit, but yeah, new manager. People are starting to post their predictions. I've seen a range. I've seen some of us up in sixth. I've seen a few say we're going to go down, which is a bit crazy. But it's going to be an interesting one, that is for sure. Probably somewhere in the middle, most likely. It's like you said, after having Europe, after watching us in Europe, that's what I want now, and that will always be my aim. I want that again. That is as good as it gets. So if we can be top half and we're looking at ninth and eighth in the European conversations, that would be great. Players settling in, staff settling in, and improvements as the season goes on. So expectation somewhere around ninth probably, but we have the potential to surprise a few.
Okay. Tell you what, let's do those. Let's do predictions now, actually, from the correspondence while we're talking about it. Do you think any of the correspondents predicted you to finish above ninth?
Yeah, probably one in sneaking into Conference League, eighth maybe.
One.
Yeah.
One. How many do you think in total predicted you to finish in the top half?
Around half.
Yeah, 11.
Yeah.
11.
It's
There's a
it's difficult
couple.
to
There's a few. There's a
justify us above a few of those teams above us, but then
yeah.
I feel like if we did finish eighth or seventh, people wouldn't be like crazily surprised with the
No, because
quality
it
we've
just
got.
needs one of the big eight to have a dip,
Yeah.
and you to be the best of the rest. That's all it needs. But it probably needs one of them to have a dip, because now you need to be, I don't know, hitting towards 55, 60 to possibly even get towards eighth now. Maybe might be the sort of thing that it might look like. No one lower than 15th. That's the worst case scenario that any of the correspondents went for you. And I think overall, on an average out, looking at 11th as an
Yeah.
overall expectation, which feels flat because of that, because you've had European football, I think.
Yeah. That's it. That's all I want now. European football again. But 11th, I mean, in the context of a season, if it's an 11th where we're showing signs towards the end and we're improving, everyone starts to gel, then yeah, it's okay. But somewhere in the middle would be nice.
Yeah, what you want at the end of this season is to see a direction of where you're going in terms of the manager. With your club, probably more than any other, you kind of know the direction of the football club, but you want to see that there's progress happening with the manager. So if it's 11th, but it's getting better and better as it goes on, you'll probably take it. But I imagine you're probably in a position now where you don't want to settle for that. So it's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Let's talk a couple of the new signings. Yankubah Minteh, he's going to get some attention, Sam. How good is he?
He's been the star of pre-season. He's been really good. Left-footed right winger. It's a profile we needed, proven by how much we missed March on that side. The balance of the attack, and another player where you look at the stats and you can see why he stood out. You see why we were so keen to sign him. And I know Simon, the Newcastle correspondent, was a little bit gutted to losing him. I imagine a lot of Newcastle fans were.
They all are.
Yeah. He's looked very sharp. His work rate was very impressive. He's going to score goals, cutting him from that right. Every manager will be saying, show him down the line, but he can do that as well. He can do a bit of both. Against QPR, he had one off the line, set up a big chance. He won that penalty, which we scored from through his hard work. I expect him to be an important player. We've spent a lot of money on him, and Minteh and Mitoma on either side is going to cause some problems.
Is he going in for you?
He's been in and out my draft. I almost want an excuse to put him in. I want to.
You watch him every week, Sam. That's enough of an excuse, mate.
Yeah, like, I mean, if we start putting some more money into the forward line of 5.5 midfielders, there's plenty of them, and one or two of them will stand out. Yeah, I do want him in there, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure yet. I think by you get into game week 4 and 5, look good, and he's cheap enough to rotate, and even with those fixtures, you back him as an attacker. He's got potential. The only thing is, I was looking at his stats last season. He only completed 90 minutes once last season in the league, I think it was. So those 70-minute subs when we've got Adingra, Sarmiento, and Enciso, eventually Solly March as well. There's a lot of options there, and a player like him who ran around like mad against QPR, get to 70, you could see an early sub.
Then in fairness, really I think those who are going for him, comparison players at the moment. So the 5.5s that I think have stood out from discussion so far with the other correspondents, Hudson-Odoi, who Mark has openly said it's the same. You're not going to often get the 90 minutes out of him. Kamada, Rory really likes at Palace, thinks he'll start, and obviously Smith Rowe's gone to Fulham now. Now there's question marks on all of them. Kamada, new addition as well. Smith Rowe, obviously the injury history as well. Minteh is, I would suggest, certainly the most explosive, i.e. capable to be, if you said to me now in 4 weeks' time, everybody would be going, one of them's like scored 6 goals in the first 5 and everyone's got to have him. I'd say it was him would be the most likely to go like batshit crazy. That's how it feels. Yeah. But I don't know if he's the right pick.
Yeah, exactly. It's still a punt because he hasn't played in this league, and it's a new team, new system, and the fixtures aren't too amazing. But it could be a wait and see for a lot of people. When we get to game week 12-ish, it's got a nice run. I think if he's starting, getting good minutes, he'll be in a lot of teams by then.
Do you expect him to start?
Yeah, I think he'll be our preferred right winger, assuming he keeps doing what he's doing. And then we've got Adingra who can kind of cover both sides. Solly March, I think, will still be a while before he starts playing again. I think he's 30 now as well, so maybe it's a bit more of a squad play. We know what he can do, but I think Minteh, if he plays well, he can make that position his. Yeah.
Okay. The other new sign I just want to cover briefly. It's not fantasy relevant, but I just didn't want to cover Mats Wieffer because I think he might end up being quite important for you. He's a really good ball-winning midfielder, and when we think obviously you haven't just lost Gross, you lost Caicedo and McAllister last year as well. So you think about that midfield trio and what it looks like now. There might be people looking at that and going, "That looks quite bare." Do you expect Wieffer to go in and be first choice for you?
Yeah. Eventually, I think he'll probably. I mean, he hasn't played too many minutes in pre-season, but he'll be an important player. It's sort of the player we needed last season as well. Stats-wise, he looks good again. Pretty much every area, physical, all action midfielder, can do a bit of everything. So he'll be important, and alongside probably Belieber in there. It's a midfield again that's not really proven much at this level, but I think for the money we've spent, and he looks like he's going to he's got a lot of potential in there. And the midfielders in Hurzeler's system at St. Pauli were really important. I know they're probably not FPL relevant now, but you look at his time. I think the top 2 for goal and assist with the 2 midfielders. So it'll be interesting to see who's given that role and freedom in the system to push up and join the attack. If that's him, could be really interesting. But yeah, he'll be an important player for us.
I wonder, it might drive people mad. I wonder if at stage we could see something like Joao Pedro playing central midfield for you. And I don't want people to take that the wrong way, because he wouldn't play central midfield. It might look like that way when you lose the ball. But with the ball, he might go into the centre forward position from there and just disappear into it. It's really intriguing to see what's going to happen with you. Before we talk some of the other assets, you'd mentioned fixtures, and people might have gone, well, what's Sam talking about? I heard him say game week 12, because people would be looking at game week 4 and 5 and thinking that looks great. So what are these fixtures, Sam? Are they good, bad?
it's a tough start. It's a tough start for a new manager away at Goodison Park, I think. If you look up to that game week sort of 11, you go to the third international break. I think we'd have played Arsenal, Chelsea, Newcastle, Liverpool away. We've got City, Tottenham, United in there as well. There's some difficult games, but defensively and for fantasy football, you can rotate. We've got some cheap defenders you can rotate in there, and attacking wise, I'd be happy to play our attackers at home to United, and then we got Ipswich and Forest. So it's not. It depends how you look at it. It is a tough start, and yeah, by the time we get to that third international break, we could be down in 14th, 15th. We shouldn't panic because it's a difficult start.
No, the Brighton fixtures more than any other, I feel like I've seen people spin their narratives to what suits. So I think the headline on that is that you play 7 of last year's top 8 in the first 11.
Yeah.
And the one that you're missing is the one that you'd arguably say is the least established in Aston Villa, despite them finishing 4th last year. So I think Sky are going with a big 7 now or something, and they well, you've got all of the big 7, let's say, in the first 11. That's rough. But there is in the middle of that, the 2 fixtures, 4 and 5, stand out like a sore thumb. Ipswich at home and Forest at home. And so if people are looking at wildcard and 4, oh wow, the Brighton coming into Ipswich at home and Forest at home now. And you can even look at playing my team at home in 7 and go, well, there's 3 great home fixtures for offensive players in 4 weeks. I think Everton away, Sean has said they start quite slowly. Manchester United, who knows? Who knows? But I think, to be fair, Gary even mentioned and said actually historically they've got a pretty good record, I think, against you. It'd been a couple of slappings. The 4-0 springs to mind. But they won at your place probably last day, didn't they? But I don't think from that perspective, United probably won't fear playing you in game week 2. So you can spin these either way. If you look at first 5, I think it looks okay, even with the Arsenal game in there in game week 3.
Yeah.
Particularly, and we'll talk about him in a bit, if you're going Barco, you probably don't intend to play him at Arsenal. Therefore, the other 4 fixtures, I guess, would look okay from that perspective. The 4-5 is quite interesting because I compared Minteh to Hudson-Odoi as in putting him in that bracket. Forest have got a great 3. Then they've got a good run again from 6, and you've got those 2 brilliant fixtures in 4 and 5. I can see that. Hudson-Odoi owners, oh my God, Minteh's got Ipswich at home and Forest at home if he's starting well. I can see that sort of thing. But I think on a whole, unless we're looking at the cheaper players, which Minteh falls into that category, I look at that longer period and think, if I'm thinking long term here, I'm probably like you. I'm thinking I want to come back in 12, particularly when I've got a new manager and I'm not quite sure what I'm going to get.
Yeah, I think you got the unknowns, and then you look at the fixtures, and it's enough just to leave it for now for a lot of people. Yeah, it's a tough run, and I think it made preseason more important for us, even though we played a few easier teams, just to get everyone buying into the system, the fans and the players. We've got a few wins there because coming out at the end of this run could be difficult, could be in a tough spot, but I think it's a difficult run. Yeah, and those Ipswich and Forest games stand out as ones we probably need to be getting some points in.
That said, I mean, I mentioned cheaper players. Obviously, the majority of players are cheap. What I mean by that is I'm probably not getting a 4.5 Brighton defender, but I might get a 4.0 Brighton defender. I might get a 5.5 Brighton forward. Let's talk some of those forwards, actually. Joao Pedro, the headline. Right, first thing, Sam, is he fit?
He's been back in training, but he hasn't played any minutes yet in pre-season, which is annoying. I'm sure he was
That's
in
the
most
first time I've
people's.
ever heard you generally angry on this podcast, I think.
It's probably in most people's first draft, and then I think his ownership's still quite high. But as the summer's gone, I'm seeing him fewer teams, which is understandable. One more game left on Saturday, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of eyes on that. Don't know if he's fit or not. If he doesn't get more than 60 minutes, is he going to start great game week 1? It's difficult. Probably not.
Yeah, as with the majority of the clubs this weekend, obviously very important. But I think even that wouldn't, unless he played 60 odd minutes and was absolutely outstanding, and he was best player on the pitch, got to play next week. You probably need something like that to feel the confidence in it, I think, at this stage.
Yeah.
How long is Evan Ferguson out for?
I'm not sure, actually. It's been a bit. We haven't heard an update on a few of our injuries in a while. We definitely missed the start of the season. I'm not sure. I don't think he's in.
FPL got him
back in training.
FPL got him missing the first 6 at the moment.
Yeah, it might be couple of months, maybe one of them international breaks coming up. Yeah, out for a while, which is a shame. But then we got Welbeck, who somehow is the only one that's fit, which is interesting. He's had a good pre-season. He's played every game, looking sharp. So he's probably the one who will start up front in Gameweek
Worth
1.
considering or not?
Nah, no, probably not. Not with Pedro there.
What's the story with Undev?
He's off, I think.
Okay. He's in the
Yeah,
Germany squad, right?
yeah. And I mean, he started slow here. He had a good final few months, and I remember being a bit confused about why he was being loaned out. But he's gone over to Germany, had a great season there, and he's made it very clear that he wants to stay there. I think we're getting a decent amount of money for him. I think the rumours today were around 25 to 30 million, which is just a lot of money for someone who's how many goals he scored for us in the Premier League?
It largely flopped for you, I think it would be fair to say.
Yeah. So he's most likely leaving. So I'm not sure if we need another forward or not. But we've got Pedro, Welbeck, Ferguson take us into the season.
Yeah, the problem with all three of them might be the keeping it fit.
Mm.
Joao Pedro at 5.5 could be incredible, couldn't he?
Bargain. Yeah. It's if we had better fixtures, he was fit, he'd be in everyone's team.
Well, I think at that price, you wouldn't even be that bothered about the fixtures, I don't think.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm not sure how they ended up on 5.5 for a player who will be important for us, being our best 11 on penalties as well. So he's a bargain, and I think in this system as well, whether it's like that second striker, attacking midfielder, or the lone striker, his movement, his creativity, his just willingness to get involved will make him a really good fit for this fluid attack. So I think it'd be important. Sometimes dropping deep, maybe not.
Yeah, I took the words out of my mouth. There is a case here with what I said about the forward dropping deep. He could end up being completely uncomparable as a player, but he could end up feeling like a Firmino type player for you. I think. Like dropping like almost like Teddy Sheringham used to, even to go back even further, maybe. It might feel a little bit like that, which I don't know is going to be suitable for. And again, it might be that the wide players actually end up being the most attractive here. So I think actually the period where people might get to see Joao Pedro and what it's going to look like before maybe investing in, to be honest, November period, I would guess, unless people want to take a 4-5 before wildcard in 6, might do people a favour. Despite what I'm saying about the wide players potentially being particularly interesting, of which will prick people's ears on Minteh, this time last year, there was no stopping me having Kaoru Mitoma at 6.5. He's not under any consideration at the moment. I guess that's because there's 20 other odd players at the same price potentially standing in his way, and you've got those fixtures, and you did have an incredible start last season. How's he been in pre-season?
He's been involved. He's shown sparks. After a bit of a stop-start season last year, had a few injuries and stuff. I feel like he's been forgotten about a little bit, but yeah, we all know what he's capable of, and having him back is going to be so important. And having Minteh on the other side takes a little bit of the attention away from him as well, because he was getting doubled up on a lot of the time. It's going to be really good to have him back in. At 6.5, it's harder to make a case for him. A little bit more expensive to rotate him in and out for the fixtures, and you've got better options at a cheaper price. But it's good to have him back.
And if you're looking for a wide player, you're looking in the wrong place. Start asking Brighton. You might get him at his cheapest point when people have forgotten about him recently. What a player he is, mate.
Yeah. He's been forgotten, but people will remember him again soon. I'm sure he'll be back to his best.
He's not a pick here at the moment, though, is he? 6.5.
No. I think just a little bit too much for the start of the season, but at some point he'll be an option.
Adingra and Enciso, same price as Minteh. Are we overlooking them?
To start the season, no. Enciso's been at the Olympics. He got picked up a small injury.
Possibly
towards the end. Maybe he've had a little break anyway. I'm not sure how it works with the Olympics. Some of them might be coming straight back, but he had a little injury anyway, so he'd be out for a few weeks. Great player, and see. So again, interesting to see where he fits in. What sort of role do we give him? Sort of a free role in the middle.
He could end up being one of them central midfielders, you know.
Yeah, be interesting. And Adingra, probably he doesn't get into our best 11 right now, but he can play on both sides. So he'll get decent minutes. It's just consistent minutes in terms of FPL. No. Injuries last year meant we had to rely on him quite a lot more than we expected. And he done well. Get another one of those players that fizzled out towards the end of the season. But another option. I mean, to have Adingra and maybe Enciso as bench players coming on off the bench for the last half an hour, 20 minutes, going to be really good.
Yeah, you don't need Mitoma. Honestly, you don't need him. Yankubah Minteh, he's 4.5. I bought him at the same price for the start of the season, I think 3 years ago, because I decided a little bit like I might have decided with Lucas Bergvall. If there was a 4.5 that could suddenly become something, it was him. He's suffered a lot of injury problems since then. Should he be 4.5 here, Sam?
Yeah. I don't think.
God, you lot have been no help this week, I swear.
I think he might be one of the players who might be the victim of this like squad trimming, sort of getting rid of those. Because he's been linked with a few clubs. He was part of that deal for Dewsbury Hall we tried to get over the line before Chelsea came in and stole him from us. So
are you angry about it now, or do you just expect it?
It's just funny. It's just funny at this point. I'm past the point of anger. So I think the way he's been rumored to leave and being part of that deal, maybe he's not part of the plans here, which is a shame because he had that long injury, a couple of years out maybe, and he still could have been a decent squad player. But when we got so many players, someone's got to go.
Be careful at the moment. Those two good fixtures you got in game week 4, you might not have Hürzeler by the time they come round, mate. Barco 4.0. He feels the best 4.0 in the game at the moment, Sam. Is that the right conclusion?
He's in there for me. He's in my team at the moment. Yeah. The sort of player who can become a fan favourite, I think. He's passionate. He's technically really good. And in pre-season, he's had a few moments where an opportunity's opened up and it was shoot now. Apologise to everyone when it goes straight to the keeper. But he had a minor injury as well before that QPR game. Didn't see him. So again, it's another one where you have your eyes on the friendly on Saturday. Hopefully he plays. I'm sure it was only minor and we're just keeping him fresh. But I think he's short term. Yeah, he's probably the best at 4 million. He's on corners as well, which we've looked really dangerous from corners. And he's looked good. And I think it's just half Brighton fans excited at the prospects of actually looking dangerous from set pieces with Hurzeler's stats at St. Pauli. They were brilliant. So we could be looking good from corners. He's been very involved, inverting or going out wide and getting some crosses in. I think he's probably the one. Stupinan coming back, I think the hope was mid-September-ish, but we won't want to rush him back like we did before. He missed 6 weeks before we brought him on as a sub. I think he came back off and missed another 6 weeks. So especially if Barco does well, if he looks good, there won't be any need to rush him back. So
I think I only saw his Stupinan once last season. He was pinging one in the top corner against my team from 30 yards. It's my luck, isn't
it? I think up to game week 5, 6. I think Barco should be okay. After that,
that's interesting.
You can't be planning too long term with him, and he's 4 million, so you got to have your expectations a little bit lower. But there's definitely potential.
I think like a 4.0 as we've spoken about so far. Mosquera, Bradley's quite high on with Wolves in terms of his potential to start, but their fixtures are shite, and you're never going to start it. Jacob Greaves at Ipswich. Now, admittedly, they've got good fixtures from game week 3, and we've still got to speak with Southampton and Leicester. Have obviously got a number of 4.0, so we'll see what Matt and Aaron say respectively. But one of the things I think people will really like about Barco is I don't think he even needs to play this weekend. I just think he needs to be in contention for Everton. And if he's in contention, yeah, people don't have to start him. He's still as good as St. Park's a tricky away game. You don't have to start him against Man United. You don't have to start him against Arsenal. You don't have to start him at all. But the one beauty that he allows is rotation with Arsenal. The idea that you can bench a Saliba away to Tottenham and away to Manchester City and play Barco in those two brilliant games at home to Ipswich and Nottingham Forest. So if you're saying you think he might be all right up to 5/6, it might just squeeze in, Sam.
Yeah, we haven't had an Estupiñán update in a while, but I don't think we'll be rushing him back. If Barco does well, those 4 and 5 could work out well. And yeah, it's not a complicated rotation. It's just those 2 weeks you need him for, and he would looks really good in there.
If by the way it went on longer, when Arsenal play Liverpool in game week 9, you're at home to Wolves. So it could even go a little bit longer.
Nice.
It dies after that in 10 and 11. I don't know what you're going to do. But listen, there's obviously other defenders you can choose from, but there is a specific deal there where you can use Barco just for 4 and 5, still have your powerful Arsenal defender, and you miss Arsenal's 2 worst fixtures from the opening 9.
Yeah. Longer term, it will depend, and I think we'll have a clearer picture by the time we get to there. What Estupiñán, what his injuries like, and how well Barco's started the season. But going forward, he's looked good defensively. A few questions, not in the tackle and not aggression, but maybe sometimes losing his man. So as an out and out, just as a left back, maybe in the more difficult games we go for someone else. I'm not sure, but as a wing back, he seems really suited, and is someone that's going to drift inside as an inverted fullback. The technical ability he has, I think it will suit him, and he should be the one to play there. We had the Lieber left back against QPR. Hürzeler said after the game that he was an option there. He likes him in the deeper roles with the game in front of him, and he done really well there actually. But I feel like to begin with, he is needed in midfield. Of course, if Barco's out as well, then it probably will be Belieber. But providing Barco's fit, I think he'll be our left back to start the season.
And before the Villa fans come for me, I know Villa away is a tough game as well, okay? I know you don't need to come for me, and you could play Barco at home to Man United rather than play a Saliba away to Villa. I hear you. If you're not comfortable with it, but you have concluded that you do want a Brighton defensive player, a little bit more expensive, what would be your preference of the 4.5, Sam?
I think, it's probably Dunk there at 4.5. It's more of a threat from set pieces. And I mentioned St. Pauli's set pieces. I had a look at them the other day, and the main corner taker got 8 assists direct from corners. Hurt's made a big point early on saying he wants to get set pieces right. They're a big part. So I think someone like Dunk could really benefit from that. And 4.5, I think we've been asking for a 4.5 Dunk every season. We think if he's 4.5, he's in. And now he's there at 4.5, and we've got Barco in at 4. But Dunk's safer with the fixtures. We spoke about the rotation. He'll play. He'll play every week.
You sure about that?
Yes, I think so.
Do you think he starts game week 1?
I think he's back in training now. I think he joined back up yesterday or day before. Yeah, so should see him against Villarreal and in for game week 1.
I just have an inkling that he might not be right for Hürzeler's system. There's nothing there that I look at now. Oh, Lewis Dunk's not first choice for Brighton. And for me, it's like, 90% he's certainly going to start the season, etc., etc. I just have an inkling that the separation with his fellow centre-back, which essentially is going to become the furthest away centre-back, the distances might get a bit too big. And there might be a real concern about that, particularly when you play against pressing teams. Now, the flip of that to counter it, of course, Lewis Dunk is outstanding on the ball. But we saw with instances last season, like Lukaku, for both yourselves and for England, if he gets drawn into those wide areas, you've got a concern. And I'm just a little bit cautious of that it might be that he might get phased out towards the end of this season. I have an inkling.
Yeah, but a very interesting point. It's a good point. You don't want Dunk being drawn into those wide areas. I think start season will be fine, but it's interesting. And you've got someone like Van Heck next to him, who I think is perfect for this system.
Well, I think Van Heck is now in a similar position as Dunk, as describing him as a regular. The big difference, if you ask him for fancy, Lewis Dunk will chip in with a couple of goals. We haven't yet to really get that feel from Van Heck yet. So I certainly understand the desire. And I wouldn't say to anybody, don't pick Lewis Dunk if that's what people want to do. I just got an awareness of it that from what I've looked at, I'm not sure longer term if it will continue into next season for him. Goalkeepers, Verbruggen injured. How long for? Which, by the way, FPL really should be flagging this.
Is he not flagged?
No, there's so many players that are injured at the moment and not flagged. They'll sort it out in the next week or so. But I think for the casual or the less engaged, they're not going to know. So, yeah, Verbruggen is injured. How long do we think for, Sam?
Yeah, that was a unspecified injury or something. I think he had a bit of an injury towards the end of last season, played through it because he wanted to be in the squad for the Euros and played through that. And then straight after the Euros, it came out that he was going to miss the first few weeks. So we're going to be starting with Steele in goal for Gameweek. Well, we've got Rushworth as well, who's a younger goalkeeper, and I think a lot of Brighton fans did want to see him, but I think he's going to be loaned out maybe towards the end of August, just in case Steele gets injured, just so we got a third choice. But yeah, he'll probably be loaned out. Steele number one, and hopefully Verbruggen back soon, maybe a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, because I think he's shown everyone that he is our number one. I think it maybe helped him the rotation last year to progress. I'm not sure. I think towards the end it was clear he was our best goalkeeper, and anyone watching the Euros would have thought, why has he been rotated with Jason Steele all season? But now he is our number one, and hopefully we get him back after 3 or 4 weeks.
I think it's not really a hot take, but I think he'll end up being a popular FPL choice this season for Bruggen. Because I think you're going to get a little natural dip in his price, and it will go down to sort of 4.4, 4.3. You're going to come into those good fixtures about 12. He'll establish himself, and I think he'll improve defensively. And I think he'll become someone that later in the season people will really like, actually. You're not going to recommend Steele, are you?
No.
No, okay, cool. Predicted game week 111 then, Sam. Go on. Is this gonna be easier now or harder with you? Got to be easier, hasn't it?
I hope so. Okay, game week 1. Steele in goal. We're gonna go Dunk, Van Heck. Oh god. Veltman and Barco as the fullbacks. Midfield, Belieber, Wieffer. Who else we got in there?
A lot.
I think we're going to sign a midfielder. I think we're going to get one more in just for that sort of attacking role. I'm going to go for Belieber, Wieffer, Minteh, Mitoma, Welbeck, and one more. Could be anyone.
Yeah, don't do the Mark Southerns, who, by the way, just wants to clarify, he didn't intentionally leave Callum Hudson-Odoi out of his predicted Forest 11. He somehow just forgot his name.
Maybe a Sarmiento to start the season. 60 minutes of Sarmiento.
God, that's left field, isn't it?
Just off Welbeck. I think he done well against QPR. I think he'll stick around. And yeah, I just don't know. We got that extra player in sort of that midfield second striker position, which feels up for grabs for the first game of the season. If someone like Hinchelwood's fit, maybe he goes into midfield as well, hopefully. But that's the 11.
He's 5.0 Sarmiento, for those who are wondering. I did genuinely have to have a double check. Buonanotte fit?
Another one that's sort of being linked away. He was being linked with Feyenoord. I think Southampton, Celtic. There's a few options floating around, which again feels like he's going to be getting a loan at some point as well.
Thank you very much, Sam. Always a pleasure, mate. I wish you the very best of luck for the season, and I'll see you at the Amex in Gameweek 7, mate. Anything you want to plug for yourself or Seagulls content before we finish, mate?
Um, no, I'll plug my Twitter at FPL Seagull on Twitter. I'm not sure if I'll be
Send
doing my predicted lineups this year. I'll have to see.
Seagulls. I don't know if you noticed, but in the early parts of the podcast, we could definitely hear a bird in the background,
Oh, really?
and 100% it was a seagull. I don't need any telling, mate, that it was definitely a seagull. Next up on correspondent week, we're going A27, M27 towards St Mary's. Where would you go on the train, Sam? Would you go to Southampton Central from Brighton, or would you go Woolston? Is it Woolston?
Southampton Central, probably. I don't know. I'm not sure.
You never
Probably
done it on
Southampton
train.
Central.
You go
Yeah, I
everywhere.
have. I have. I can't remember. Yeah, Southampton Central, I think. Bit of a
Yeah.
walk though, isn't it? I think it's the stadium.
Yeah, you got to walk. You walk up the hill into the town, then you
Yeah.
walk back down. My dad had to do that run a couple of years ago, and he's still not thanked me for it, I don't think. Next up, episode 15, a correspondent week. It's promoted Southampton with Matt Samuel. Sam, thank you very much, my friend. Good luck for the season. Cue music, please, man child.